We're going live.
Hi.
Yes.
All right. We should be live. We should be live. Hello, world. Hope you are all doing well out there. We got some people chilling in the chat.
Oh,
Whole lot from
yes.
Wrangler. Hello,
Hello there.
Wrangler.
Hello.
Hello, Moral Officer Gran. Our usuals have arrived. We are here once again for another magnificent Terran Tuesday with another magnificent topic. This one picked out by our own Black Knights. And Black Knight, how have you been since the last time we've seen you?
I'm well. I just am having had a more restful week. Not, of course, not including the usual stuff like the edits and the work, the usual stuff. It allowed me to do away with most of the chores that I had, so I kind of squeezed in more writing time.
Nice.
So it was nice. And I was also able to conceptualize a new story, a new sci-fi story, which probably would be, I don't know, maybe in a week or two. It will be published as part of the Sci Friday.
Sci Friday.
No, yeah.
Righteous. We have Lily Fields joining us.
Hello.
Nice. Sci Friday, which you get weekly releases, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Warrior Wednesday too. Warrior Wednesday is the day when I publish my Shadow Fantasy.
Oh, all right.
Which, yeah, it's not dark fantasy; it's shadow fantasy.
Why don't you tell us the difference before we dig into it in a bit? The difference between shadow and dark fantasy.
So, I'm not going to go into like long-winded explanation of dark fantasy, because we all know that dark fantasy it incorporates horror elements of horror, which you, James, like a lot. I know, we know.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, correct me if I'm wrong. So it's traditionally you can say that many Conan stories are dark fantasy. You also have various other pulps, the old pulps, which could also be called dark fantasy because of the more heavy and mature themes in them. Less on the whimsy, less on the purely light-hearted, fantastical, and more on the horror, more on the let's say cosmic horror. So it's yeah, supernatural horror, maybe. You have even like elements of portal fantasy, as I said, cosmic horrors, but everything that it has like more darker themes, more heavy themes, more mature themes. So yeah, that's our dark fantasy. I remember a fellow indie back from my Minds days. He even called it gothic fantasy, by the way. So the difference is that between dark fantasy and shadow fantasy is that the shadow fantasy is like, yes, you have some of the horror elements you may even have cosmic horror or something
All right.
the sort, but it's balanced. You are not going to go into too much or too many darker themes of the overabundance of darker themes. They're balanced with some whimsy and some lighter themes, so that's you're not full dark. It's actually a shadow. That's why it's called shadow fantasy. So that's the
all right,
difference.
all right. Interesting. I might have read a few of those. Maybe Goosebumps would fall underneath that.
Mhm.
Interesting. But all right, Snow, how have you been since the last time we've seen you? What have you been working on?
I know what I was going because we had storms and everything else, and then we've had like the giant blue northers. So anybody who's done Texas, y'all got whammy like with snow up north of us. So if you got snowed on, let me know. We had like winds like 60 miles an hour down here for the last half, and it's just been like rip roaring out there. So our neighbor decided to light piles on fire because the burn man's not on, but for some reason it was cold, so everybody wants to have a bonfire. And I'm like, dude, it's like relative humidity is 20%. And if you know what relative humidity is, it means your stuff catches on fire usually around here below 30% because wood is dry because the wind's been blowing. So we had to go and stare at it because it's okay for them to do that. That's what country people do. You light your field on fire, but with the wind blowing like that. So right before the show, I was like standing on my son's porch, staring at my pasture next door watching it burn, and I'm like, I really hope Mr. Klein's got the tractor out there. So yeah, so he does. Good job, Mr. Klein. But so yeah, and I ran in here, I'm like, yay, it's dark fantasy. So my horror story this week is like something catching on fire or getting blown away. But yeah, so that's what I've been doing. I've been having fun.
Nice, just out there living a real adventure.
Yeah, it's an adventure every day.
Yes, life out on the countryside. It's every time we hear about a new interesting crazy thing going on down there.
Yes, I don't know how to. I'll have to retrain my brain here because one of the things that when I listen to you guys talk, it's just like y'all are so many levels above me when it comes to actually knowing all of the genres and weird stuff. And I always try to figure out where do I fit in the genres, and I think I probably I would say I don't know because I'm going to ask my readers if they would know. I guess there is a dark fantasy element to Watcher the Dam, even though we call it a sci-fi western. It's really a weird category. Hang on a second, I got to turn down my radio. Hold on a second.
Yeah. Like a sci-fi western post-apocalypse.
Yeah,
which I have seen before, but it is kind of like quite the rogue genre.
With dystopian elements oftentimes. Oh, James, by the way, what is your favorite dark fantasy?
In general, that would be a difficult one to answer because there's a lot of them out there that are
I know.
Let's see, favorite dark fantasy. Yeah, I'm gonna have to think about that one for a while, so I'll get back to you on that one soon. But I'll be trying to come up with something good. The dark fantasies. What about yourself? What is one of your favorites?
Solomon Kane.
Which one?
Solomon Kane.
Oh, Solomon Kane. All right. Yeah, there are a lot of fantastical elements in Solomon Kane. It's been a while.
Solomon Kane, it's I don't know. I haven't read all of the stories. I read a few, but what reminded me of Solomon Kane was that movie that we had a while ago. I don't know if you I don't know if you've seen it. The movie was nice. I forgot the actor. It was really good. It was really good. The soundtrack was nice. Basically, it was it was good. The movie was good.
Yeah, decent
So yeah,
adaptation.
yeah.
Righteous. Solomon Kane.
Mhm.
What made you want to choose dark fantasy as a topic? Because that was this was one of your choices, right?
Yeah. Well, I read an article by Jim Dave.
Uh-huh.
We've had him on the show, I think, a couple of times already.
All
So
right.
he wrote was a long article. I don't know if you read it, Snow.
I think I looked at it. Yeah. Go ahead and tell me about it though.
Yeah, but it was awesome. Go read the article, please.
Right now?
Mhm.
No.
Oh, okay, bye.
When you can. So
Okay. I was like, wait a minute.
read the article when you can. It's I will leave the link in the chat. Give me a second.
Yeah.
But he did a great analysis. Even the he mentioned the subgenres, of course, authors and stories and books and this and that. He also spoke of recent trends in the genre, which some of it I've noticed, which, sad to say, you have like how should I put it? Well, you've heard about the grimdark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what I usually and others also we call this grim derp, which is so much dark fantasy, like so dark. It's utterly hopeless, and it loses the appeal. Most readers are like repulsed even by it.
All right.
So this is one of the trends, which, like, everything is doomed. Everything is too dark. Nothing you try is going to work. And yes, there is a niche for these kind of fatalistic stories that are too dark, too much dark fantasy. Yes, of course, there is that niche, but it's more like they're pushing for everything in dark fantasy to be like that, which it's pointless. To me, at least, it's pointless.
Okay.
Why would you read something like that?
Like grim dark fantasy.
Well, yeah, grim derp, more like so, because even Warhammer 40K, even it has some hope left.
Yeah.
Though everything is screwed and everything is schlocked, and almost all hope is gone. You have some element of hope left, though most of it's like false hope, and you end up like dying in the end. But there is some hope left, like it's maybe it's even the illusion of hope, but it's there. In grim derp, no, there is not even the illusion of hope. It's nothing.
Okay, I think that you have to be in the right frame of mind too to read grimdark. Now, I know a lot of people who love grimdark, just because when you're in that place in your life where you're like, everything just sucks, and you're like, I don't want to read anybody's happy ending. Like, you just go through your first divorce or whatever. I don't know how many divorces you had. But yeah, and you go through it and you go like, I just don't want to be here. And so then you read the story and it makes you feel better about your situation. One of the classic examples would be Berserk. Berserk is an extraordinarily dark story. It has a lot of fans because it's just so absolutely brutal. If you're in a mood for thrash metal, then you're probably in a mood for grimdark. They sort of ride hand in hand. And that's the kind of place where if you're in that place in your life and you're reading it, you feel pretty, pretty decent about it, because you really want to just immerse yourself in the despair. And that portion of it, I would say another classic example would be Moorcock's Elric series. That's where it's totally grimdark. Like I said, the only time I ever saw my ex rage quit a series was Elric, was Moorcock's final scene. He literally threw the book across the room and scared me, because I was like, what's going on? And he was mad because the way it ended, but no spoilers. But so you have to be in that frame of mind. At the same time, it's something you never forget. So grimdark as opposed to just dark fantasy. In dark fantasy, I would say in grimdark, there's the light at the end of the tunnel turned out to be a train, and it ran over you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And dark fantasy, the light is probably in the house, and the house belongs to the witch. And you might get out or you might not. Just depends. So the difference being that there's probably a way out. There's the illusion that there's a way out, and you're going to work your way towards it. The dark fantasy also is heavily invested in magic. I think that's one of the things that separates, like I said, in Watch of the Damned, actually technology is called magic at some points. It's sort of a nod back to Ralph Bakshi's Wizards, which is another example of dark fantasy. If you've ever watched it, totally, it's so trippy. Have any of you ever watched Wizards by Ralph Bakshi?
I want to say yes. What is it about specifically? Kind of jog my memory.
It's like in a dark future filled with war, then there's a wizard, and there's people that have technology, and technology's bad, It's magic, because magic was developed and sort of cool stuff. And I won't give you a spoiler, but it's just classic ending.
Does it end? Is there a gun at the end?
Yes.
Okay, then yeah, I've seen it.
Yes. I love it. I'm sorry, I love it. It's terrible, but I love it. And that's a good example of dark fantasy that somehow it manages to turn out okay, or at least even if you die, you die in some sort of glorious pile of burning rubble or something like that. Dark fantasy, to me, the difference between grimdark and dark fantasy is that dark fantasy probably has a way out. And grimdark, the world may never change, although the hero might. And in fact, in your best grimdark, you're going to see the hero's arc continues, even if the world is terrible. The hero's arc is somehow elevates humanity in a dark world. That would probably be the father of all, games. That's dark. Grimdark would of course be. I think you're right. Warhammer. That it's in the future. There's only eternal war. And a dead god upon a throne. It's like, how can you get more grimdark than that? And a lot of technology involved with it, but it's also a lot of high fantasy as well, because there's a lot of. I think of Warhammer as being more in the realm of high fantasy, actually, in some ways, because it does rely so heavily on magic and on the spiritual elements of it. I think. Now, that's just me. Maybe I got it wrong. You can argue with me if you like. I believe that it travels into that realm through the spiritual end of it, the spiritual magics. It's like a clerical type thing. And so it sort of face it into that realm as well. And I think that the difference between the dark fantasy that we're talking about is there's probably a way out. One of the things that genre does for us, and it's the reason why it's so frustrating when I talk about my series, because I really can't find out exactly where it fits. But genre lets us know that if I'm picking up a book and it says fantasy on it, there's probably either a dragon or an elf in there. If I want to read about dragons or elves, I can go, I'm going to go to the fantasy section. If I'm really depressed and all I want to do is listen to Metallica just all the time, maybe some Fetus or something like that, then I'm going to go and I'm going to head straight to grimdark. I'm just like, don't want to talk to anybody. Just going to, light my bed on fire and read. I'm just going to do that. That's grimdark. If I want to sit down and I want to be cozy, then I'm headed towards the fantasy section, just plain fantasy, where it's a story about something cool, and it's like, maybe cozy, something like that, where I just want to be comfortable and I don't want to have to wrestle too much with my brain. And so we have these genres for a reason, because people kind of want to know where they're headed with the story. What happens when you have something outside the genre? Well, then you have something like Watch of the Damned, or actually Tolkien's work at the beginning didn't really have a genre, so it didn't know where to land. And so those things, it makes it a little harder because readers don't know where you're headed with it. They're like, how am I going to have that ending? Well, that becomes a big investment on the part of the reader to go, I don't know where the story's going, but I kind of want to find out. I'm going to stick with it. And then you feel totally ripped up just because it didn't in the way you wanted it to. You feel cheated or whatever. It can be, it's terrible to invest that much and then to have that happen to you as a reader. So genres do help us as writers because we go, you know what, I want to find my readers. I want them to find me. I can put this genre on it. And I think for dark fantasy, I want to see horror. My favorite dark fantasy of all time is Dying Earth by Jack Vance. And I call it a dark fantasy. Some people will put it solidly in fantasy, but I believe it is dark fantasy because it has heavy elements of horror, especially regarding demons and body horror. The story of Sasang, where he is horribly mutated by this witch with this terrible, almost like a Beauty and the Beast story. He's just so incredibly ugly, though, and the way it's described by Vance is so revolting. He hates himself. He can't look in the mirror. He can't stand to see himself. He has this worm-like 3-part nose, you know, and he's so bitter and angry. And his story of coming across a woman who can see no beauty in anything. And she, of course, is a created human being, and she was Law, but she can't see beauty in anything. And the first time I read it, I was actually moved to tears because in my own life, I had somebody who was dealing with mental illness at that time, and I was a young person, and this person could not find any joy in anything. Everything was wrong. Everything was bad. No matter what you put in front of her, it immediately turned horrible. It was like you could pick a flower, and she would just talk about how terrible everything was. And I literally, like, it was the first time I'd ever seen that person described that way. And I felt so bad for her and for the person in the story. And that dark turn illuminated for me a portion of my own life that I was, first time I'd been able to describe it. If that story had been just fantasy, everything's cool, everybody's beautiful, everything's wonderful, I don't think I would have ever gotten to that place. But Jack Vance's story of this horribly twisted, ugly man with a woman who couldn't see any beauty in anything, she's not revolted by him because she had already seen so much horror in everything. That everywhere she looked, there was so much ugliness and darkness that he didn't register as a blip on her radar. They're able to fall in love because of it, because they were made for each other. And this twisted turn of this tale that creates such an enormous superstructure for the worlds that Jack Vance creates. I don't know how to describe this, the way that these characters moved me. I said, had they been all lightness and sweetness and everything turns out exactly the way that it's supposed to, I don't think it would have had the same effect on me. Instead, it was that story, and still there was something good in it. So that's where it fits in with what Dark Knight is saying, that it moves towards the brighter day. Even if the world is dying, it's still beautiful in its respects. And of course, with me, with the Dying Earth, it has this huge influence on Watcher of the Damned as a world that's in decay, and yet it still has beauty and poignancy, and the people on it are still people. It's not that they no longer matter just because the world is not waxing like a full moon. It's waning, it's dying off. And so I wanted that imagery in Watcher of the Damned, and that actually takes Watcher of the Damned in some ways towards that darker of fantasies. I would definitely put it in the darker side of things.
It's like a genre bender or anything.
It's a weird, and like I said, that actually works against us from an authorial viewpoint. It works against us because I'm actually put in with just the general science fiction. Since it really can't be there, since there's not a genre for it, it puts me in general. And it's like, dude, I broke into the top 1,000, but it's like, holy cow, because there's how many millions of books are in science fiction. And I'm literally up against all of them because inspirational sci-fi westerns, dark westerns, there's not a genre for that. So we get a chance to kind of slip into that area. And I think that darkness, a lot of people, and I'll agree with Black Knight on this. We have a tendency to go through our edgy phase when we're younger because it does mature us. You have to go through that portion of being depressed at some point. I think that there's at some point in your life, you'll actually wake up and go, why bother? Just why freaking bother? And when that happens to you, you want to find something that resonates. And we can't always find it in that brightness, but we go through that edgy phase then where everything's dark, everything's bad. You're grumpy, you wear black to work every day. People are like, what's wrong with you? And you're like, get lost, hoser, and you can't find that joy.
Yeah.
We get to a place where we actually go through that arc and we come out the other side and we realize you're actually going to live. You can't lay there all day long. You have to get up to go to the bathroom at some point. You can't cry all day long. You have to go eat something at some point. And You move through the pain, and then you realize you want some more brightness, but you've matured as a reader. It's no longer, it has to have exactly the happy ending. It's no longer basically formulaic, and you want the darkness to be reflected, but you don't want it to overwhelm the story. You don't want it to overwhelm the joy of reading it. And so that's what takes you into that maturing as a reader, as you go through and you say, I want to explore. I want to know that there's some reason for getting up, even if I'm not the person I used to be, or the people that I loved are no longer with me. Why am I still here? What am I doing? And we get a chance to actually do that with dark fantasy. It's no longer just edgy, we're all going to die, and life's terrible and you die. It's life's terrible, you're going to die, but you're still going to find some joy. Somebody's going to remember you, even if it's just the person that finds your bones at some point. There's something left of the world that's beautiful inside you. And that elevation, we talked about it before with the difference between Tolkien and Hemingway, is God. It is the spiritual aspect of that something is worth fighting for and dying for, and that we can live again. The difference is the world on past the sunrise, past the darkness, and as opposed to just going into that eternal night. The despair of the First World War, and how the authors reflect that in their own writing and in their own life, like F. Scott Fitzgerald and others, the depression versus depression with a side of joy. And certainly we see that. And I think that is probably the greatest factor that's going to be found in the difference between the authors who write dark fantasy versus those that are simply writing hopelessness. Like I said, each one has its own merits. They all find their readers. The readers find them, but it's that difference actually is that there is something on the other side of the darkness, and that's where dark fantasy takes us, is through that fantastical world of magic and light and darkness and terror, and it takes us through the valley of horror and the valley of despair and death, and you can see that light somewhere on the other side, even if the ending is not perfect. The light is there, and I think that helps us to find the readers that are ready for something besides just the despair.
All right. Yeah, definitely. Everybody has their favorite dark fantasy, and fantasies in many ways are often used as fables to express ideas. And often if we look towards like the Grimm's fairy tales, which are probably some of the most popular dark fantasies.
They're brutal.
Yeah, it's very much a way to sort of encapsulate death in a way for younger minds to understand and process ideas that could resonate, and horrors to resonate within them,
monsters and stuff.
So there's a lot of good there. Yeah. What do you got to say? You vanished there for a moment.
No, the fucking StreamYard dropped me. It said something went wrong. Try again. But yeah, it's how should I put it? In some ways, the idea of having humanity pitted against some incomprehensible, unfathomable horror, something beyond our comprehension, it's quite alluring. Because you have this like thick layer of mystery around it, something that cannot be perceived by the human mind, and this makes it even more intriguing for us to explore, even though we cannot know the true nature of this, like something that is like, for example, one of the ancient ones from Cthulhu's realm, or the devourers of space from Star Shattered, because there are things that live between galaxies, and they kind of feed on light and matter, and also dark matter. And so there is a theory in it's just a theory. This is one of the truly incomprehensible and beyond understanding horrors beyond understanding in my universe. They just call them.
But wouldn't that be more of like a horror vibe instead
Yeah,
of straight dark
cosmic
fantasy?
horror. Yeah,
Yeah.
cosmic horror. This is a cosmic horror. But even if it's like a little bit of like semi incomprehensible, like maybe you do understand a bit of it, but there are things about it. Let's say even the original vampires, the Upiri, they are a thing which is not as defined as in Bram Stoker's work.
Uh-huh.
There are legends about them. How do they operate? What do they feed upon? Is it blood? Is it energy? Is it something else? What are their weaknesses? But in the beginning, in the really ancient tales about them,
Uh-huh.
they are like the people who told the tales. They said, yes, this is not a concrete know how to defeat them.
Mhm.
It's just our what we know from what we learn from many others who learned it from others. It's like amalgam of hearsay, rumors, and
Yeah.
someone said, oh yes, I defeated one in this village. I like drove a stake through their heart. We opened the grave and this happened. And oh yes, they cannot go outside in the sunlight. But then you have like this, the tellteller tell you, but do you know, it's not maybe it's not the same, because from that other town they said that they actually could walk among humans and they are invincible to like in daylight, and even if you stab them in their heart, like nothing happens.
Uh-huh.
This is the part that really drew me in, because of this balance of conflicting um, clues, which you could use in as an author in your stories, and kind of play with the reality of things, because you even in science you do not know everything, and
Uh-huh.
more so in mysticism. Yes, it's like, ooh, you have this ancient grimoire and you read about this incantation, but what if there is an error there, or it's based on something that never worked, but it's so ancient that you assume, oh, it's ancient,
Mhm.
it has to work, but it doesn't.
Yeah, I got busted like sitting there for 3 centuries.
Maybe.
Question I've got,
Or
talked about that. So, would you consider Ash from the Evil Dead to be trapped in a dark fantasy or in a grim dark?
well, it's a dark fantasy with grim dark elements.
Like, what would consist of just a straight horror then?
Just like if it's just endless scenes of destruction and death. I guess if there's no magic in it, horror can have the supernatural usually, and it can magic, but it has to be terror as opposed to just hopelessness. And that terror, the thing that takes fantasy into horror is that we are expecting to be terrified. We're expecting to be frightened. Good horror, and I was thinking about this the other day because I'm not a slasher fic person. I do not like watching people getting tortured. That's just me. I'm not on y'all if y'all like it. Because I've been an EMT, I've watched people suffer. And so I don't like to watch people get hurt because I have to deal with the real world all the time. But a really good scare, supernatural horror, I'm very attracted to. That Lovecraftian eldritch gods touching something you shouldn't touch, or seeing things that shouldn't be seen, that shouldn't be there. I love that element. In my family, we talk sometimes about, the second sight, being able to see things that other people can't necessarily see. It's been a part of our family tradition and history where we talk about, things we've seen or things we saw, out there. That is, when I was a kid, my parents would talk about their family and their grandparents and their mothers and fathers seeing things that other people wouldn't be able to see. And so we were raised up to know, hey, you're going to be able to see this thing. So I love watching that. But for instance, the difference between The Sixth Sense and Berserk, both are horror, but to me, horror takes it more towards the fear as being the main factor. If it has to do with justice or retribution, Berserk sort of leans into that part. And while it is a horror part, it has horror in it. Horror is not the main focus. It is the redemptive arc of the character, if one can call it redemptive. His ability to take control of his own life. And I have not read Berserk, so don't quote me, because everybody told me it's like Blood Meridian, except it's a comic. And I have a hard time to bring myself to read things like that, because it is about torture and and being hurt and stuff like that, and supposedly does it quite well. But from what I can tell, the thing that everybody talks about when they read Berserk is about the character himself, not about the actual action that takes place. So let's talk about horror in that perspective with The Sixth Sense. It's about realizing that it's about death, actually about death, period, about the stages of death, and about seeing people from beyond the other side of death.
Yep.
And so death itself is more the focus. And so that takes it into the horror genre. And then Berserk is more about the character instead. And so I think that is kind of sort of separates the two. But we'll say, for instance, if you said, hey, you want to go see a horror flick, which one would you say? Yay, I'm going to go see fill in the blank. What is it, James?
Horror pick, Freddy Krueger.
Okay, so there's
yeah.
What would you pick for horror?
I would pick the what was that guy with the hockey mask?
Jason.
Jason, yeah. But like the first movie, not the latest ones, because they go into sci-fi and fantasy.
Friday the 13th, is that one?
Yeah. I think it was that. Yeah.
Okay, we just had Friday the 13th, so congratulations.
Hello, Magic Chat.
When you go to the movie for that, what are you wanting to see, James? What are you, Freddy Krueger?
Well, I don't really go to the movies to watch horrors because I'm more of a story-based guy, and most of those are just kind of thrill-based. Let's say they're very thrill-based.
It's a visceral horror is what you
Visceral, yeah, there you go.
It would be visceral. You're what you feel what the character is feeling. Black Knight, Friday the 13th. Why would you see it? You want to feel what?
I want to see the guy with the hockey mask fail and get killed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, overcoming that fear. So
yeah.
The primary things that you are reading this because you want to be afraid. You actually want to feel that terror. And there is something about human beings that we instinctively crave it. We've talked about this in the past, horror, because it helps us face our own fears. We feel this thing, but it's in a controlled environment. It's not out there in the world where we have to deal with it on the fly. So we get a chance to walk through horror, feel it, and then work our way around it. The fear is the absolute focus of horror. You are there to feel it. You are there to have that atmosphere just absolutely blow you away. Now we go over to dark fantasy or to grimdark or any of those dark, noble stories. And then we say, what is, am I there to feel just fear? So no, actually we're not. We're there to, what are you there for when you're looking at dark fantasy? If you're not there to feel fear, what are you there to feel when you are watching or reading a dark fantasy? What are you wanting from it?
I guess, if you're thinking fantasy, there'd be layers of whimsicalness to it, but also like a almost eerie, darkened aura. So I'd say you're going in for, at least for me, it's like adventure, but a adventure with particular frightening horror elements that you otherwise wouldn't find in, say, like your traditional fantasy.
Yeah, some creepy, more magical monsters, maybe,
Yeah.
or a witch, or like some magic which has gone horribly wrong. Some ritual, maybe. Yeah,
Oh.
that's what I'm looking for. And of course, you having read some of my sci-fi work,
Mhm.
because it has a lot of fantasy and horror too. It even has its vampires, James, kind of.
Yeah.
So yeah, what I want is from my fiction, from my own personal fiction, the one that I wrote for my readers, is to find a way, which of course it's not going to be an easy way. It's not going to be like snap your fingers easy. It's going to be a gruesomely hard, bloody and crawling with your guts on the floor way, hard way. But I want to show that even with their dying breath, the characters sometimes are able to defeat said horrors. They might not be able to defeat them forever. They might only be able to banish them, or they might die defeating them, or which is most often the case, they would have to join forces to defeat a horror. But this is what, like, this is the justice element of it all. And I'm not talking only of mystical horrors, magical horrors. I'm also talking about scientific horrors created by way of science, which, let's say, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was the first one, if I'm not mistaken. So yes, this is what you will find when you read my work, and this is what I sought for in contemporary science fiction and horror. I sometimes found elements of it, but not the whole of it. Yes, but there are like these dragon-like beings. You could call them dragons. Let's say dragons, which you can't really defeat. You can probably escape them, convince them that they do not need to eat you, quote unquote, but you can't really defeat them. So this is another layer of it's not even cosmic horror. It's just fantasy horror that I'd like.
Well,
to
that would
see.
be dark fantasy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I think that would classify as fantasy, but there's that layer. I think when I think about what I'm looking for with dark fantasy, as opposed to horrors, I'm looking for the magic. Always, it's magic. The reason why it's so different than sci-fi is because there's a mystery to it. There has to be that mystery with magic.
But you have also magical science.
Yes.
In science fiction. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you do. When you take it into the mystic realm with science, and this is what people understand. That part where, and you're right about this with science, with Frankenstein, it elevates the science to a mystic level, bringing life back. Elevates it to you're playing with things that only God should play with, bringing life back to the dead. but not just to one dead person, but to several, cobbling them together to create this being. One of the things that takes it into that science territory, but it's the mystic, and would probably work for dark fantasy. For instance, we have a situation where they've started creating brain cells that now can be linked together to create computers. And this is really happening. And they have put them in basically brain cells in petri dishes, and they are now living their lives as a computer. And that's certainly a science fiction, but it elevates it into.
Yeah, it was from Star Trek, if you remember.
Yeah, no, this is really happening. Actually, this is like real.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that part. But yeah, it was in Star Trek too. That people were sort of trapped in this, and it basically becomes the Matrix. That people being petri dishes, or are they people? Are they human? It's human, obviously. Their brain cells. Does that make them? I think therefore I am. Is that therefore human? That takes it sort of into that realm of, is that dark fantasy? Well, it could be if you have a few of the other elements in there, but it's horror based. It's dark. If it just stays that way and nobody ever escapes, that becomes grimdark. And if there's an element of magic in it somehow, it sort of straddles that point. The author has to bring in that mystery to it, beyond just science. There is a mystery there, something that cannot possibly be explained. In Frankenstein, for instance, it is the act of life. The lightning strikes and suddenly life occurs. And there's a jump, but it's plausible by virtue of the fact that Shelley writes it that way. She's able to do it. She's able to create that atmosphere where we believe it's a plausible jump. I mean, there's still the mystery of it that elevates it from just science fiction to horror. And we're terrified, and at the same time we're sympathetic. Her monster is iconic for a reason. Because he takes everything with it. Is it dark fantasy? Possibly, because it's still a fantasy that it could occur. The magic is there, but not in the traditional sense that we think of now. I say traditional. As we think of fantasy, I think that probably, okay, so if it's fantasy, can it have other races in it, like the orcs and the elves and everything else? Or can it be just human and still be fantasy?
Yeah. That's the question, right? Because I do consider Frankenstein not really a fantasy, because there's so much hard science that kind of goes into it.
Yeah.
I consider more of a gothic horror, because it's so grounded. When I think of dark fantasies, I think of like Lord Dunsany, who wrote a lot of dark fantasies, and I also think of one of my favorites was actually a gentleman by the name of Manly Wade Wellman. Now that I get my mind jogging on the subject, he wrote Appalachian dark fantasies, where it was all about, all of them, or a majority of them, took place in Appalachia. It was about broker deals with the devil. It was about witches' covens and people living in the woods having to deal with vampires nearby, and things of that nature. One of his most famed characters is actually a Christian character called his first name was John the Balladeer, I believe it was. It was based off of John the Baptist, who would go about facing a lot of these dark forces while having a guitar strapped to his back and occasionally stopping to play a tune for himself. And that's kind of where the fantasy comes in, because you have these ethereal, mystical elements that are not evil, that are other, in this case good, and sometimes they're just neutral in general. That mystical
part of the land.
Exactly. The natural magic, if you will.
Okay, yeah. So you should have that magic there, but now it turns into supernatural magic. The deal with the devil and the other things, or when we talk about the other races, maybe not elves, but little people. I think in a lot of his stories, Appalachian stories, especially deep woods stories, Texas, there's a lot of stories about, like I said, the voice in the woods, or the elements that have their own spirits and things like that. And
Baba Yaga is also a tale of the deep forests, by the way.
Yes, that one I would definitely consider dark fantasy, because there is a lot of whimsical elements. You got the
but she eats kids though.
Yeah, well, that's why it's dark. But
Yeah,
but she also lives in a house with giant chicken legs.
yeah.
Yeah, she flies in mortar and pestle,
Mm-hmm.
a large mortar and pestle.
That's
She
crazy.
actually flies in it.
Exactly.
Some
Yeah,
people
very
consider
whimsical.
that. Some people consider that really old UFO story.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. They consider everything a UFO story. There's actually this funny one. There's this type of painting where it was a Christian painting. A lot of people have painted it. It has like Mary with the baby Jesus, and it has a shepherd in the background, and then the glory of God parting the clouds and shining down on the shepherd. And some of these paintings, because it's a style that's just was kind of very popular. I think it was around the Renaissance.
Ooh, yes.
But
Yes, I
some of
remember
these
that.
paintings, people say, "Oh, look, it's actually got a UFO in it." But then, like the actual like connoisseurs of art will just start like they basically use this because I remember hearing it from a teacher of mine who
Yeah,
was
that
a
was a
big
style.
connoisseur of art, and she would laugh at this notion simply because there's so much history behind all these separate elements
There are so many
that go into them.
paintings. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they say, oh, and they literally say it's a joke that people who just don't know about the history of these arts or who really don't appreciate them think they see a UFO when it's really the glory of God.
Yeah, and so that's it. Once again, you're talking about the point of view of the person doing it,
Mm-hmm.
of a viewer, the reader. Ultimately, it's the reader that decides, is this dark fantasy, and what is fantasy for one reader might not be for another. For some people,
it's what they're looking for. Yeah, exactly.
But when I asked y'all, your answers were different. The feeling was what you were there for. There's sort of a generic overview of what we think of as horror. For instance, the fear has to be there. And there's a generic overview for fantasy, that we have magic in it, but maybe there can be the supernatural just well.
Oh, by the way, because you read the first my intro book. Would you consider Boris's backstory horror story?
It's got a horror in it, but because he breaks out of it, sort of, he's able to be a part of the story. He's able to be who he is. So it breaks free of horror to become him, and it becomes more about him. So I would say, yeah, he's got horror elements in it, but I would put him solidly in sort of that arc away from horror. He's managed to somehow to take some control. And I think that is the part, I didn't even thought about that. The greatest horror stories of all take away control from the person.
Yeah.
They lose control. In fact, that's why so many of us losing control, not being able to fight back, not being able to win. Like, for instance, Black Knight, you said that you want to see, somebody come up and, and actually fight back against Jason, win, do something against him. And that part where you win against the horror and you get away or you do something, that person who takes control is the person who breaks free. So I think the loss of control is part of what elevates a story out of just simple grimdark or horror and takes it into the fantasy realm because somebody is trying to get that control back. They may lose it, at some point, but it's not the whole point of the story. For instance, in Lord of the Rings, if you read the Silmarillion, there's tale after tale where it almost would read like a dark fantasy or a grimdark, because the reason that I would say that Gollum's story is so tragic because he loses control. He can't control who he is anymore. He can't control how he reacts to the ring. He becomes somebody he would never want to be. A Smeagol becomes
a slave of the ring.
He's a slave of the ring, and he can't. It calls him from the deeps. He literally is finally freed of it after centuries, and he follows it. And of course, I look at it through the lens of as a person who's dealt with addiction and addiction recovery services. A group leader, And I said, personally, my life, I have not been addicted myself personally. I have gone through it with my family members. It's another special kind of horror to go through that with someone, to watch them change from somebody, that's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That's the horror there. The fantasy part of it, how it would elevate it into dark fantasy, is it acknowledges the past of that person and then it takes it forward. Well, in Gollum's story, he loses that control. He loses that ability to be himself. That you can see that glimpse of who Gollum is when he's speaking to himself, and he's free. We're free at last. We're free of this thing, and he's so went away, and it makes it hurt so much worse when you realize that he's not really free. That he just cannot break free. But at the same time, Tolkien, because you see another side of it where Frodo is attempting to break free, it takes it out of the grim dark. If the same thing had happened to Frodo and he's just crushed by the ring, and even though he throws it in, he's defeated by it, I think it would have had an entirely different feel. And instead, yes, he's scarred for life. He's hurt by the ring, but he still is Frodo. Unlike Gollum, who is destroyed by it eventually and is so central to the whole story of the ring. So that fantasy portion of it is the redemption of it. Whereas if it had been left in just a ring that's terrible and it ruins everybody, and no matter what, if you touch it, you're dead pretty much. And not just dead, but destroyed. We see that a lot in the Silmarillion as the ring crushes character after character after character. It's only in the redemption of Frodo and through, ironically enough, through Gollum's own destruction, that he is able to be freed. That takes it into the realm of the fantasy, I think, and frees it from that, just the horror or the grimdark. Because otherwise it would have been a tale of horror. You have this thing enter your life. You don't have any control over it. It takes over your world. And let's all be honest, everybody has to deal with that at some point. You will never escape this thing. You will one day look up and there will be something in your life that you cannot control. It will be something in your child's life. It will be something in your life. It will be something in your life, a feeling, a health condition, a catastrophe, and you will go, I have no control. I have no way to handle this. What we find in our reading, what we find in our exposure to the culture, when our culture enlightens us, when it lifts us up, we go, you know what? You're not alone. Your world has become a dark fantasy. It's become a horror show. You cannot control what's happening to you. Your body is being eaten by cancer, or your loved one is turning into a monster because they're using drugs, or your child has been taken away because somebody decided they didn't love you anymore. Whatever the case is, whatever you're going through at that point, the horror stories that you've read and the things that you have taken into your mind, if they have uplifted you, they've gone, you know what? This is how I felt when I read this thing. It's that sorrow and that hopelessness. Maybe I just need to stick with it because the hero is going to win someday. The hero is going to make it. And that is the elevation between just the horror of life to the fantasy, the world on the other side of the darkness. There is something past this place. Frodo's encounter with the shores, the Grey Havens, is where we don't get to see it, but we know he's going there. Had it ended with Frodo just being crushed and the world becoming more and more colorless, it would have been a horror story. And instead, he goes to a place that we cannot follow and we cannot see. And it is, of course, a direct allusion to the Heavenly Kingdom, with Tolkien taking us there. That is what takes us out of the horror. And that is why dark fantasy is so important. Because when we read those stories that take us through the horror, it gives us a template, something to remember, that we can go to it when the day happens and you touch and you realize this is going to destroy my life as I know it. Can I survive as me? Will I come out of the other side as still myself? And the answer is yes, if you can believe that, and if you can hold on to what you know is dear, you can survive anything. And I'm here as a witness to say that, yes, you can survive the addiction of a loved one. You can survive the death of a loved one. You can survive any number of terrible things if you're not taken off guard by the absolute tragedy of it. And this is what our literature is supposed to do for us. It introduces those fears and those worries, and plants the seed of fierceness in us.
Well said, definitely. And dark fantasy has been one of those pieces of literature is almost like a type of introductory horror for the youth, because many of it is aimed towards younger individuals, primarily to learn about those dark things in metaphorical ways. They're fables of their own time, using these elements of folklore and various creatures and fantastical elements to deliver a message to young minds who may be a bit too sensitive or inexperienced to truly understand them. It's quite the delivery method, and to this day, I think that a majority of, because I said folklore, focusing on that, a majority of folklores originating from most cultures would easily fall underneath the category of a dark fantasy, because many of them are dark, very dark, in fact.
Yeah, but they're cautionary tales. That's as you mentioned, that's the idea, to prepare younger, more inexperienced minds for maybe the horrors that like the real life horrors that they might meet in their life, they would experience.
Death and loss and everything in between.
Yeah, and things that they might not be in such a, let's say, clear frame of mind to actually understand what they are seeing. Let's say they are sick, they have a fever and they see something, and because their mind is they're ill, and they're hearing things that are not there, or they're seeing things that are not there, or their brain is interpreting the stuff that they see and they hear in a weird way. So yes, indeed, that's one of the things too, that when I spoke to a really old woman in one of the villages I went, she said that some of the tales, the folk tales about I don't know if you know, I think I spoke about the Samudivi.
You might have. Remind us.
Yes, so these are spirits. They are like, it's almost not almost. It's part of the ancient shamanistic tradition of a lot of the peoples that form our people, about these female spirits that are quote unquote carefree, and they dance in the deep forests, and if you're a man and if you see them, you fall helplessly in love and you die.
Okay, yeah, I remember you mentioning.
So basically, a lot of it was like she said that she actually believed that they were real, but a lot of the folk tales were created, were woven, so the younger people, they would be given some sort of an advice, a life lesson, in terms of their love life, their relationships with women, and because as children, we do not know sometimes the pitfalls of certain relationships, and so they kind of used the old tales to have this lesson here and lesson there, like from the old people. So this is one of the perhaps one of the forgotten parts of the folk tales, if I can say so myself.
Well, I think you're right, and we talked about fairy tales before, and or what we call fairy tales here in the United States.
Yeah.
couched in an allegory. But you're right. The whole point was if you went out in the woods and there was a girl out there, and you don't know her, that's a strange woman. You should run. That was the whole point. You would meet somebody that you didn't know. They weren't from your village. You didn't know who they were, and they were just out in the woods. You should immediately leave because
the woods, especially in Slavic, Bulgarian folklore, ancient Thracian and Sarmatian folklore, the woods are like hell. This is like
a lot of dangers.
The other world from the Mesoamerican culture. So like when they have these caves and when they go into these caves and they reach the afterworld. This is like the forest is you can go through a part of the forest, of the deep forest, and then you can never go back. You're absolutely lost forever. So I mean it's more of a cautionary tale, like perhaps part of our minds like us to think that yes, it's just a cautionary tale to be careful, like Snow, you said, like weird people, strange people, unknown people in the forest, like be safe and just like run away. So they might be bandits, murderers, like people who are hiding from the law, who've done bad things, and so it would be just preservation to escape, to run away. But they might not be people.
Well, that's
something else.
That's the worry. That was the worry.
Yep.
Yeah, the point that you were making, that there's dark things out in the woods. Let's think about how woods are set up. And the woods are so many. The setting for fantasy as well. There's
the woods are a labyrinth.
Yeah,
let's face it.
It is. If you've walked through the deep woods in deep East Texas, like especially when you get back in the old growth areas, and we don't think of that as being out in East Texas, but there is a place called the Big Thicket, and it's very unnerving to walk through a forest, especially old growth forest. It's clear underneath the large trees, but it's blocking so many sections of your vision. You cannot see this tree. Every time you move, there's always something that is outside your vision.
It's not the issue of what you cannot see. It's the issue of what you see.
Yeah, just that. It's so hard to describe to people if they haven't really been in it. That you're. I'm out here on the prairie. I can actually get up, like I was trying to look at the spire, and I'm like, okay, I'll just move, and I can actually see. There's a clear line of vision. And James, you're out there where like the wide open spaces and the desert areas and places where the Southwest where you can see for miles. In East Texas, I always said, you look up and the trees, you don't see the sun until 10 o'clock, and then it goes down at noon or like 12 because you only see 10 to 2 on the skyline because the trees. And so you have these large areas that every time you move, you're still never getting the whole picture. You never get the whole picture. Of an entire scene. It's always something that's out of sight. There's something that's hidden from you, and so
gets you
to that element.
Will be the most horrifying thing.
Yeah, the creepy part of it, where it's all well and good until the bear comes out. I said that itself, just knowing that it doesn't even have to be supernatural, but they take on supernatural elements because they can smell what we can't smell. They can sense what we cannot sense with heat-seeking organs and things like that. And as a result, there takes on that horror element as well. You only have to read White Fang or Jack London's Call of the Wild to understand the horror of the wilderness. And when you cannot see that far, when you turn around and literally there's nowhere where you can actually see a straight line of sight, there's that unnerving sense of claustrophobia that you cannot make yourself secure because there's nowhere to go that you can get where you can see. And I think that's why we so many times when we look at dark fantasy, it usually takes place in a wooded setting.
A lot of the time,
But I guess of desert fantasy. I guess we should say that. Do we have dark fantasy in deserts?
Oh yeah,
I think so. Yeah, like a lot of the Arabian Nights, some of those were a little dark.
With the jinns and the jalals and whatnot, and you have like things that leap out of the sand. You don't
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
you could walk over a dune, and it could have like stuff in it, and you just can't realize, and it's just like you can just lose your way in the desert because everything looks the same.
Hmm.
It's like every dune looks exactly like the other dune almost. So yeah, you could walk in circles in the desert too. Maybe even more so. But this is the same in the deep forest. You can you oftentimes, the people who get lost, they get lost because they believe their eyes, and they assume that, oh, that tree is that tree that I remember. I will remember the tree, and and then they walk in circles around the tree, and every time they look at the tree, oh no, this is not the same tree that I remembered before. It's another tree. It's a new tree. It's a different tree, but it's actually the same tree, and they're walking in circles. That always happens.
Trail. Blaze your trail, y'all. You can avoid the scenario by leaving a mark somewhere.
Exactly.
Actually, each area has its own vibe, its own fantasy vibe. I think that like I said, we do see a lot of it. Talk about classical fantasy, we always imagine trees, but the truth is that any kind of setting can be a setting for fantasy if it has that element of mystery and magic. And I think you were mentioning the Dark Tower series, James. I think you put it in there as a sample of dark fantasy. Probably has so many different settings in it. And here's me being real: I have never read Dark Tower. I've had 2 different editors say
I got bored with it.
Did you really? They put it in the comp with Dark Tower for Damned, and I'm like, I've really got to read this someday, but I don't want to read it before I finish the series because I don't want to get derivative. And but somebody else said the same thing, that it has basically it's the Song of Roland, but it's just in different settings, and so many different settings. So I'm assuming that the magic and that mystery are involved with it too in the Dark Tower series. Like, when you started the Dark Tower series, Black Knight, did you like the first book, the first 2 or 3 books?
I liked the first one. I mean, obviously, I did not like everything, but I liked it enough, so I would start the second one. But the issue here was that when they started publishing them, it was at a time where books were expensive. And when I got bored with it, I think I got bored like mid second book, and I decided, no, it's not like I barely have enough money for textbooks and other school books, so I can't. I just can't. And so I think I switched to the Sword of Truth. Yeah, this is what I actually switched to at the time.
Right.
Yeah, well, and actually, you know what? That is one of the big things that I think changed when we started seeing the ebooks being for less. When you had to pay $15 to get the book, and every time you buy it and you're disappointed, that's a kick in the head. It really is. You've spent $50 to get to that point in the series, and then it's not good. And for so many people I know, they will go in and they will read the ebook first, and then they will go back and buy the physical copy if they like it. Want to read the ebook first, and I don't blame them. But then you all saw this then this week, where they were going back and changing the ebooks.
Yes, they've been doing that for a while.
Well, but people are finally noticing, like, where Pretty Little Liars is written in 2006, but it's got a reference to TikTok. It's happening. They're not putting a notification in. There's no change log. As a result, you don't know what the author actually originally wrote. So to me, that's kind of a horror story where you're looking at something and one day you read it and it's got a scene in it, and the next day the scene's changed because it re-downloaded itself, and now the book is. I think that would be
library.
I'd be like, oh my gosh, my book changed while I was reading it, and I don't understand. And So just if you love something that one of us has written, please buy the physical books, because they are now talking about not offering physical books. They are thinking about going to.
I don't think that will catch on. No, impossible.
I'm going to continue to offer physical books in any way, shape, or form I can. It may take a while to order them, but we're going to try to find a printer if we can't get it on Amazon. But that scares me to death. That's a horror story, y'all. If I could not have my printed books, I don't know what I would do.
They are making too much money from selling them, so.
Yeah. But with that said, we're already at 4:30. We're about to hit 4:30 right now, at least my time. Where can people find you guys, and what are some of your final thoughts on the subject matter? We'll start off with you, Snow.
Oh, me. I love the darkness part of it, as you probably well know. You can tell by looking at my series. I feel like with enough darkness in the world, it's not good to ignore it. And it's okay to say, I'm going through a dark period in my life. This is where I am. And we find our way through that dark forest and out because of the roadmaps that have been created for us by dark fantasy and grimdark series that we have read. Those genres that embrace the darkness, embrace the horror of life, that help us form our own way out. And if you're going through that place in your life, find some stories that will help uplift you to walk you through that valley of the shadow and into the light, because that is exactly why God created us, not to stay in the valley forever, but to walk through and to come out on the other side stronger, better, and brighter. And we can make it through the dark valley, and those stories will help us get there. And you can find me at watchofthedamned.com, where I sell my series Watch of the Damned, which is a dark sci-fi Western fantasy, but it also has that uplifting heart of love. And would encourage you, if you feel like you might be interested in that, to find me on Amazon under R.H. Snow and the Watchers of the Damned series. And I look forward to hearing you from it. And all of my people out there, I love you. Mwah, mwah, mwah. I see you. I love you.
Righteous. How about you there, Black Knight?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the key thing for me is to acknowledge the darkness, face the darkness, embrace the fears, reshape some of the fears into weapons and armor of the mind, just as my moral officers love to teach their fellow Terrans, and be able to actually face and destroy some of the darkness, some of the horrors. Well, of course, obviously not all of them, but at least some of them. So that's why we like to watch and read horror stories. We like to train our minds for when real life fear and terror assails us. It's like swimming on dry land, if you catch my drift. So, well, as to where you can find me, you can find my Starshatter series on Amazon under the Black Knight. You can also grab my perhaps my very first published shadow fantasy book, Lord of Bones. Of course, you could also find my story collections, my 2 story collections. The second one, the newest one, is The Blood of Tyrants.
Right.
The first one is A Mandate of Sword and Dragon, which has lots of darkish fantasy, sci-fi fantasy. So yeah. Or you can go to my Substack, the Black Knight Substack, theblacknight.com, where you can read my newest work, including my shadow fantasy, which has lots of horror, balanced, of course, with coziness and wholesome.
Bit of everything. It sounds like it's got a little bit of everything. But with that
is a
said,
balance. Yeah.
With that said, everybody, thank you for joining us on another magnificent Terran Tuesday. Stop by next week. If you're part of the replay crew, go ahead, give us a like, share with your friends. We'll always be right here for you, people. Have yourself a wonderful rest of your week. We are out.